Welcome to Al Bernstein Unplugged Unboxing. In a 40-year Hall of Fame career, Al has chronicled some of the greatest moments in boxing history. On this podcast, you get to hear him expand on those memories and talk about the current news in the sport of boxing. You also hear Al interview some of the biggest names in the sport. Here's Al Bernstein Unplugged.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. Happy that you joined us for this edition of the show. On this show, we're going to get a chance to visit with Claressa Shields, who, of course, is a two-time Olympic gold medalist, has been a professional champion in 3 different weight classes, and on March 5th, she'll be involved in the very first all-women's pay-per-view broadcast as she takes on Marie-Eva Dakar. And that should be a very interesting event, to say the least. We're going to talk to her about that and also about her, not only her boxing career, but her plans on moving into the MMA world as well, which she wants to do simultaneously with her boxing career. So that should be interesting. And of course, we will also answer all your questions. And to help us do that, let me bring into the fray my partner, Trip Mitchell. Hi, Trip. How are you?
I am doing great, Al, and we're only 6 weeks into 2021 and already some interesting results.
There are. There were a couple of very good fights in January, including the fight that we had on Showtime featuring Stephen Fulton Jr. getting a very big win as he won a world title in a terrific fight. And then this past weekend, we had a potpourri of everything you normally get in boxing. You know, we had a fighter coming back off a loss, Richard Comey, after he'd lost to Teofimo Lopez, to beat Jackson Mariñez, who is a good lightweight. And Comey looked very good in doing it and announced himself as back on center stage in the lightweight division, where he can now challenge perhaps for a world title again. He's a former titleist. He had the IBF title. And we had an excellent fight of 2 very good featherweights. Jojo Diaz, who was a champion but lost the title on the scales for this fight. He did not make weight, came in over 3 pounds overweight against Rakhimov. And so Rakhimov had the chance to win the title. They fought in a very spirited and excellent fight. It ended up being a draw. So Jojo Diaz lost the title on the scales. It will now be vacant. Rakhimov did not win it because it was a draw, though he performed exceedingly well, as did Diaz, in truth. And so now that title is vacant. But they produced an excellent fight. Then, in a major upset, we had Mauricio Lara beating Josh Warrington. Now, it wasn't for a world title because Josh Warrington had vacated his world title, but it was a significant fight, and Warrington was getting all geared up to fight in a major fight, possibly against Gary Russell Jr., who they presumably offered $1 million to for the fight, and other major fights. Lara showed tremendous power, and this young Mexican fighter beat Josh Warrington in a major upset. And along the way, we also had what else would boxing be without some very questionable scorecards. And when Barrett fought Kiko Martinez in England, Barrett won the fight, but won by and won all 3 scorecards, 2 of them by 118 to 110 against the former champion Kiko Martinez, and won the other scorecard 116, 113. Well, any human being that has ever seen a boxing match that watched that fight knows that there is no way conceivably that the scores could be 118, 110 for Barrett. And it was even his promoter, Eddie Hearn, said afterwards those scores were ridiculous. So we had a potpourri of everything that you usually get in the sport of boxing this past weekend, and boxing will continue. The rest of February has a bunch of important matches, and we're moving ahead into March.
Yeah. And Al, we've been working together for a long time, but I still appreciate that you have me weigh in before every show.
I want to make sure. That's very important.
Let's go to the question. Vice Squad asking, Hi, Al. Been hearing some talk about Canelo Caleb Plant meeting up. That would be a great fight. If it happens, who do you got?
Yeah, it is an interesting fight and a possible fight that could happen. Caleb Plant, of course, the young 28-year-old who is the IBF 168-pound title holder. And even though he's made 3 title defenses, is still, to many people's eyes, not truly tested. He fought Jose Uzcategui, who was a good fighter, to win the title, but has fought limited opposition for the most part. And he's a very good boxer who seems to be getting better and better. And, of course, that boxing style he hopes will help him against the hard-hitting Canelo Alvarez. Now, Alvarez has to deal with his February 27th fight with Dream, and he is a big favorite to win that fight. Upsets happen, though, as we just saw this past weekend in boxing. But if he wins that fight, he wants to fight again in May and then in September. And Plant is certainly talked about as a possible opponent for him. It is interesting because I think Caleb Plant has gained a certain amount of fan following and popularity. He had a very highly rated fight on Fox TV in the United States, Fox's national network. And they've showcased him several times on that network. And because of that, I think he's gaining a certain following, which is probably part of what is making him a potential opponent for Canelo. That and the fact that he has that 168-pound title, the IBF version at least. Is he ready for Canelo Alvarez? That's a big question. He's 28, so it's not like he just started boxing. And he does have a world championship. So I guess if you're going to take the shot, this is the time to do it. You could lose in the interim before you get that shot and then maybe be out of the Canelo sweepstakes. So we'll see. It should be an interesting fight to be sure. Another interesting night for boxing will come on March 5th when Claressa Shields, who, as I mentioned, is a 2-time Olympic medalist, a gold medalist, and has won titles in 3 different weight divisions. And she's going to be shooting for 4 titles in the super welterweight division when she takes on Marie Dakar from Canada on March 5th, a Friday night. It is a pay-per-view that you can see on all your normal pay-per-view outlets. And it's going to feature all women's boxing on this card, which is the first time that has ever happened. And Claressa Shields, as you'll see in this conversation, very involved with this entire card and this entire endeavor. So she's kind of like an actor that's directing a film she's in, or he or she is in. You can tell in the discussion how much she's invested in this being an overall success. Now, the question that raises, of course, is can she wear that many hats and give her best performance? She says yes, she can, and you're going to hear about that. And here's our discussion with Claressa Shields. Claressa, you are on the brink of doing something pretty historical on March 5th when you headline a all-woman pay-per-view card. And I would think, in addition to the fact that you're preparing for an important fight, all of that history is not lost on you.
No, it's not lost. I think it's a big deal. Women's boxing hasn't had a pay-per-view fight of this magnitude in 20 years. So to be back on this platform is huge for us. And I'm doing all that I can to make sure that I'm prepared for the fight, but also that the fight does well because, of course, the numbers always matter. So I'm hoping that I can get some great numbers and we can do more of these.
You know, I was involved in I was on the broadcast of the Layla Ali, Jackie Frazier Hyde fight when that happened, and which turned out to be a pretty extraordinary evening on every level. The match was terrific, in addition to the fact that it created a lot of excitement. So I was thinking about that when I was getting ready to interview you today. So here we are 20 years later, and this event is a special one. Do you have to be careful to not let any of the promotional issues and your concern about making sure it's successful affect your concentration as an actual participant?
Yeah, it's really something that I shouldn't have to worry about. But me being a woman fighter, I have to. Like, I just can't, go into a dark ball and delete all my social media and then just tell my team do their job. Like,
Right.
this has to be successful on all levels. Like, the numbers have to be good. I have to perform well. My opponent has to, bring her A+ game. The girls on the undercard has to be exciting. It's really a big thing overall. So yeah, of course, I would love to just not care about the numbers, right? And just focus on training because it's easier. But that's just not the routine in women's boxing. Well, not for me anyway. I can't have an off day. If I go out there and we do decent numbers and I don't perform, they say, oh, Claressa Shields has fell off, and women's boxing is back to zero again. So I have to always be on my A game, but also have to be a businesswoman at the same time. So
it puts a different
stressful, but it got to happen. It's stressful, but it has to happen.
Yeah. It puts an extra pressure on you, to be sure, but part of that. But I sense you're the kind of person that, in a way, welcomes the some of that, because you're not simply a person that's boxing and trying to win fights. You have a broader kind of view of life.
Yeah, it's definitely broader. It's not just about me. It's about women's boxing as a whole, right? And then just trying to give the girls a blueprint. So when I'm done boxing and I don't box no more, they know at least what we have to do to keep our sport afloat and to keep it, rising up. And I've been telling all the girls, stop. Why would we call them during an interview? Sorry. I've been telling all the girls who I know, build your brand up, and you choose what your brand is. If you want to be the big bad, wolf, and you want to blow houses down, you be that. If you want to be the pretty girl, who just got a good body and you know how to fight a little bit, be that. If you want to be beauty and bronze, be that. And right now I've decided that my brand has always been beauty and bronze. It wasn't portrayed as that, but that's what it is. I'm a beautiful woman and I have a great shape and I can fight my ass off. So that's what we're going to sell.
All right, so it's a big picture, and that's good. Fascinating too that you're making the point that you can't rely on other people. If other people do their jobs and they help, that's great. But you have to take some self-ownership. And part of that is just the fact that if you're a woman cast in this current role in a sport of boxing that hasn't accentuated women, though it's doing it a little bit more now, you just have to take ownership of some of your own branding, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you can't let them paint out the narrative for you, because then it becomes a narrative and it's a person that's not you. And right. And that's just not what you want. I mean, boxing is hard enough. We got to train. We're always in a public eye. People always looking at us, and people expect to see who they see on TV. So I'd rather just give off my authentic self than having to be pretending all the time, because I'm not a mean person. I'm not a person to, do like a whole bunch of, like, I trash talk to girls when they trash talk to me. If girls leave me alone, I leave them alone. So I'm actually pretty nice, but I think I've been painted out to where some of my fans actually fear me in a way. Like, they're kind of intimidated, or they think that I'll talk trash to them. And it's like, no, I don't. It's not what I do.
Do you think some people think of your image as harsher than it actually is?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that people have, because I really didn't care about my image at first. It was like, as long as I'm a great fighter, it is what it is, right? But just the trash talking and the way that they made it seem like I was the bully against some girls, when in reality I was the one being bullied. I just handled it better. right? But I think that I was paying out, of course, when if you just see me box, you already see like, wow, she's mean, she's ferocious, and she hits hard. But then even after some interviews, after some fights where I was actually told to be nice and to be cordial, and I was, and girls got in the ring disrespecting me on live TV, and I was still supposed to keep my composure, but that's just not who I am. It was like I was being nice and I was being cordial until somebody gets in the ring and said that they're gonna kick my ass after I just won a world championship. It's like, what do you want me to say?
Yeah, right. Yeah, change your attitude. Let's talk a little bit about March 5th because it's an important event. It is a pay-per-view in which you're going to be on the top with Eva Dakar in a very good matchup, an undefeated fighter. And you guys are fighting for the 154-pound titles, and a number of all-women fights underneath. So it's a unique event. Let's talk first about your matchup with her. She's a very talented fighter, and she's a left-hander. Let's talk about that first. Have you had, how is it fighting a left-hander? You saw many in the amateurs, I'm sure, and some in the pros. What's your general take on adapting to left-handers?
Yeah, so my opponent, we both had a long time to get ready for each other. This fight was originally scheduled for May 9th, 2020. So now we're going to a whole new year, been about 8-9 months. And, she's been able to watch plenty of film. I've been able to watch plenty of film. But just her as a fighter, being 17-0 is very prestigious. And I've been able to watch her film. And she goes in there, she's dominating all her fights, just like myself. She got some quick hands. She got a lot of movement. And just fighting left-handers like they can tend to be slick and use different angles that a right-hander would not be thinking that they're going to use. So the punches are coming from like the total opposite direction. Like you think you think the left hand is coming over here because you used to fight, orthodox fighters, but instead the left hand is coming from over here. So it's a little different, but at the same time, like I said, I got a different mindset when I fight against southpaws, and it's a different goal. Instead of to land a big right hand, you think of, smother the jab, get away from the left hand. But that's fundamental basics that I see a lot of fighters in today's time when they fight against left-handers. And I'll give an example of Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell. When he got dropped, he was circling into Luke Campbell's left hand, and then he got hit with it, and then he got dropped. But just the basic fundamentals is you circle until you smother the jab and get away from the power shot.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're going to go into the power shot, you have to make sure you're aware to get out the way of it. Yeah.
The other thing that you do very well that works against the southpaw, though people don't always talk about it, is the double left hook. As you're moving to your left and you can throw that left hook, you have a very good one.
Yeah, absolutely. So me and Coach got a very good game plan for this fight. And I've been really working on my power. Not that I don't have it, but just because I definitely have a whole lot of power. It's just about picking the shots and knowing where to land the shots at. So my last fight, we was able to drop Habazine with the body shot, and that's getting us closer to the knockout that we want. So I think that the big knockout is coming, and I'm just gonna go in there and break Marie Eve Dakar round. I'm gonna break her down round by round, and I think she's gonna put up a really good fight, because she's 17-0 and she doesn't want to lose that O, but I don't want to lose my O either. So I think it's gonna be a highly competitive fight until I'm able to break her spirit, and that's what I plan on doing.
Yeah, as you point out, she's a boxer puncher who has pretty good movement and has a pretty good straight left hand. Has not shown tons of power, but yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be a process during the course of this fight. And I mentioned that the overall card will be occupied completely by women's fights. Was that something by design that everybody felt was a good idea to kind of call attention?
I've been said to my promoter and to my manager, Mark Taffet, I've been told both guys, like, we can't keep sitting around waiting for the networks to give us an opportunity. We need to go out and make our own way. We need to go out on our own faith and just do what we know that we can do, and stop being told by networks that we're not a pay-per-view fighter or that we're not big enough, because I am one of the most known fighters in boxing right now. And that's on social media. I got a movie about my life being made. I have a documentary out already. I'm the only 2-time Olympic gold medalist in America. And to be told that I'm not big enough in the social world is like, how I'm not big enough in the social world, and these guys who they're putting on don't even have movies being made about them. No Olympic gold medals, not enough world titles to even be compared to me, but they're on pay-per-view. And I had told Mark that we have built a large fan base just over the last couple of years with the platform that we've been given, all the opportunities we have taken full advantage of. So now it's time to see if we built ourselves up big enough to where we are pay-per-view stars, and it has to start somewhere. So in a way, I want this to be super successful, right? But then again, let's say if the numbers are not what people expect them to be, right? We also have to look at women's boxing hasn't been on this platform in 20 years. So whatever the numbers are, we just have to build off of them and do another pay-per-view and build off. Okay, we get 50,000. Next fight we'll do 75,000. Like, just building up off of that, because what was the men's first pay-per-view numbers? Nobody talks about it because they continue doing it, and it probably was small, but they continue building it up, and now they are where they are. So women's boxing needs to start somewhere and continue. Who knows where women's boxing will be at right now if after Jackie Frazier and Layla Ali fought, if there would have been continuous pay-per-view fights, because they did I think 100,000 pay-per-view buys.
They did.
And that was back in a time when there was no social media. Women's boxing was just coming along. But then we also have to count into fact, this is Muhammad Ali and Jackie Frazier, and Joe Frazier's daughter. So that played huge in their favor. But now we're in a whole different time. Women's boxing exists, but it's still like we're starting from the bottom all over again.
Yeah, and you make the point, every journey starts somewhere, and that's where this pay-per-view journey is kind of starting here. You have also talked and are working actively to participate in MMA, kind of, becoming a dual threat, certainly not abandoning boxing, and boxing is a big part of what you're doing, but the world of mixed martial arts has an irresistible lure to it for any woman that thinks she's capable, because that sport has advanced a little farther for women. How far along are you in terms of your training for that? And what is a reasonable expectation of when you might participate in MMA?
I started my MMA training beginning of December. And I spent about a month and a half to 2 months of time in just MMA training, because we didn't know when I was going to have a boxing match. So I had all that free time to just focus on MMA. I've been able to learn a lot because I'm at a great gym with great coaches, Coach Wink, Coach Greg Jackson. I'm training with Holly Holm and Johnny Bones. I spend a whole lot of time with them. So I'm just a natural athlete, and I can learn things quick. So stuff that I've been able to learn and been able to pick up on, I've been able to pick up on things pretty fast. And I'm already doing kickboxing sparring. So that's a plus for me. Been practicing the jiu-jitsu, the wrestling, the sprawling, the avoiding takedown, getting some takedowns myself, how to properly choke and how to properly slam people. It's really an art to it. And just really strengthening my legs and my shins, because I got long legs. I'm definitely going to use them. So we got some kicking going on and stuff like that. And it's a very different journey for sure. And it's been very humbling for me. And the MMA world has accepted me with open arms, and not not saying that boxing hasn't, right? But I've done a lot more in boxing, and I've done nothing in MMA yet, only trained. And I've seen a lot more support in the MMA world than I've seen in boxing. I mean, even Conor McGregor, he saw me training, and he even commented on something. And he gave me some advice. You know, Johnny Bones comes to the gym and he trains with me, and we drill together. Holly Holm, you know, treats me like I'm a little sister, you know. And everybody kind of just everybody welcomed me with open arms. And it's been some hard training days, but I think it'll all be worth it. But you can look forward to seeing me in the middle of June. My MMA debut will be in the middle of June this year. I don't know against who yet, but just super excited to just get in there and make a great transition.
That's good. So you will have had about a 6-month period to train and be prepared. And you rightfully understand that and this is the way with MMA, the more disciplines you can become even fairly decent at, it's going to help you, perform. I had Amanda Serrano on recently, and she, of course, has delved into mixed martial arts, and she talked about the humbling, how humbling it is to try and, get those skills and learn them. It certainly helps to be a world-class athlete and being involved in combat sports, but it still takes time.
Yeah, it definitely takes time, and you have to be honest with yourself and just go in there and do the thing that you hate the most. And for me, I've never had to do any kind of fighting on the ground, so that's something that we've been huge on. And just the wrestling part, if you hold somebody in boxing, the ref come and break it up. The ref not going to break it up if they're holding you in an MMA fight. So just a lot of different things, but I've just been getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it's been great, to go from a sport where I'm the top dog at, and now I'm going into a sport and I'm starting at the bottom. It's still in my mind. I still feel like I'm top dog, but then at the same time, it's like, I realize that I'm not, but I want to be. So that actually gives me the motivation to work harder.
Well put. You're a very good spokesman for yourself and the sports you participate and everything you're involved in, whether it's a business venture or whatever. But when you were younger, communicating was hard for you. You had a hard time, and you had to get better communication skills. What kind of breakthrough was that for you when you started to do a better job of communicating?
I think it all started when I was a kid. I think that I have a problem with feeling like that I'm being ignored because I had a bad speech impediment, and I stuttered a lot. And if people couldn't figure out what I was saying, I would get extremely frustrated. So I used to break down and not talk at all. So to go from not talking at all to having to learn how to talk, that created me to have some anger issues, and I dealt with the anger issues growing up. But I think boxing is part of the reason why I express myself so well. If things bother me, I let people know. I try to think of the best way to say things to not offend people, but to just get my point across. But sometimes people have to be offended, and I'm okay with that. And I think that learning how to communicate really is something that we have to learn throughout our whole life, because we deal with different people and it's different communication skills. Some people like being yelled at, and some people like being talked to, and some people, if you talk to them nice, you never get your point across. But so you have to learn the person that you're communicating with, or just the area, and you tell some people to shut up, and they take offense to it. And you tell other people to shut up, and they laugh, right? So it's all about knowing who you're communicating with, and just getting your point across and having a real conversation and listening. And I think that listening is a big part of communication. And I've learned over this time that sometimes it's just best to listen and just not talk. And I'm great at not talking sometimes, especially when I'm meeting new people and there's new business ventures. I let people just talk, and I listen, and then then I can figure out how to communicate with them to either make our relationship work or to just say, yeah, this is not going to work out for me, right? So I just think it's funny because all my business partners and everybody who I work with, I've learned that in business, if somebody talks really, really fast, right, and never gives you a chance to talk back, I just don't work with them. That's my rule. It's just an unwritten rule that I have. So everybody on my team knows that whenever we talk, we always have a conversation. If you're telling me something, I'm going to ask you questions. We're going to go back and forth, and we're going to, I don't want you just to over talk me, and whenever I talk back, you like, it doesn't work like that, So you have to learn that too, though. So everybody on my team knows, like, I like to have a conversation and understand everything that's going on, everything. So communication is a great skill to have.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's intriguing. Well, and everything's an ongoing process. I guess we go through life figuring out ways to communicate, and I don't think we learn everything until the day we're gone, right?
Nope, agreed.
Probably not. You had an interesting comment about that I saw. I think it might have been with Brian when you did his podcast about how sometimes. While boxing hasn't always been as welcoming and fair to women's boxing as it should be, sometimes it isn't even intentional. Sometimes it's a learning process, and some of that learning curve is happening, and clearly progress has been made. But I thought it was really a smart. Really smart that you're at least trying to recognize when those things are intentional and when they're just part of a baked-in system that can be changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I had spoke about that because, of course, I had a lot of fights with Showtime, right? And on the journey with them, it was a learning curve for them and also myself. When we talk about women's boxing and women who push the sport, usually you have women yelling to the rooftop, equal pay, equal fight time, equality, right? And then on the upside, you actually have to just have that communication. And I've talked to Steven Espinoza, and I've said, hey, you guys promote the guys' fight for 8 weeks and you promote my fight for 4 weeks. But then you guys complain to me about the numbers. Like, maybe if you guys promoted me more, and giving us the same promotional time and giving us some commercials, or whatever, maybe the numbers would be bigger. And that's just me having a conversation of something that I see, right? And then also too, but it didn't generate with them at the beginning, because when the last time that Showtime had a woman boxer on their stable, like before me, and it's been a while. So it's not that they're sexist or whatever. It's just that they don't feel that they need to do the same thing for women, or they don't think about it. So I bring a lot of things to their attention, and I will also speak about, like, you guys do the day in the lives or the 24/7s or the all accesses for the men, but you guys don't have anything on me, or stuff like that. I would bring to their attention, and they actually listened, and we were able to have conversations. But still, sometimes they would still drop the ball. But at the end of the day, they did try. But I just think that, I don't know, they just kind of look at it as women's boxing. It's like, look, it's all the same sport. So the definition of equal is 10 equals 10. Whatever you do on this side, you do for that side, right? And so when the sport of boxing learns that, women's boxing will flourish, right? But right now, people just still don't understand that 100 equals 100. Like, it's not 100 equals 50. It's like, whatever, men, women equal, right? We're on the same level. We do the same sport. We take the same risk. And also we need to fight the same fight time. It's not that women are against fighting the same fight time. That's not true. There's been rules put in place to prevent us from doing that.
Right.
There is no woman who says, "Oh no, I don't think that my body is in good enough shape to do 12 3-minute rounds." It's not a woman world champion who will say that, because it's not true. It's all about preparation. But all these rules have been put in place, I feel, to keep us down, to keep us unequal, so where they can say, "Oh, well, you don't get paid as much as the men because you don't fight the same amount of time." And guess what? They're absolutely right. We only fight 20 minutes compared to 36. But guess what? I spar 36 minutes, and I spar against men for 3 minutes 12 for 3 minutes 12 rounds. So, and it's also other women that do it too. So as soon as that rule gets changed, I think that everything will start being equal, because in MMA, everything's the same. And that's why the women over there are respected more than women boxers. But I'm going to show them that even though women boxers don't get the respect, that we are something to be reckoned with, because I'm going to go over to the MMA. I'm going to kick a lot of ass into where they're going to be like, wow, women's boxers are athletic. Mm-hmm. They do punch hard. They are explosive, because we haven't been given a platform to showcase that and be looking and to have it looked at as the man is looked at. Like, 12 3-minute rounds is really what we need, but for them to tell us that we're less than.
That's interesting. So I'm hearing you put a lot of emphasis on that specific rule, and every female boxer I've ever talked to has said they would like it to be 3-minute rounds. I haven't talked to any that have not said that. So you think that rule has a pretty big impact overall, don't you?
Absolutely, because you hear it all the time. Why should you get paid the same if you don't fight? If you don't fight the same amount of time? That's like somebody working the same job but not working as many hours as somebody else, but they get paid the same. And I'm like, look, we totally agree. We're not asking for you to pay us the same and us fight less. We're asking for you to pay us the same and we fight the same amount of time.
Interesting. Yeah.
But and they're not giving us that opportunity. And it's all these rules put in place, and it's just terrible. We have to keep telling them. I actually heard a man say that these rules were put in place to protect us. And no disrespect to that man, but I didn't ask for his fucking protection. This is boxing. This is boxing. And you're not going to protect the men. Once we sign that paper and you're a professional boxer, we know what comes with that. So I didn't ask to be protected. I asked to be respected. Two different things. So they can take the protection part out, because they're not protecting me by not paying me like the men, by treating me unequally, making it hard for me to provide for my family. That's not protecting me. If that's what they think. Like, if I wanted to be protected, I would go play double dutch, or I would go, be a damn cheerleader or something. I chose boxing. So
interesting. And of course, those choices, it is intriguing because women didn't make the choice to fight 2-minute rounds. Men made the choice for them. So clearly. And do you see that changing at all? Have you sensed any movement that you could point to that commissions might be willing to rethink this?
So the WBA has already told me whenever I want to fight a 3-minute fight for 3-minute 10 rounds or 3-minute 12 rounds, as long as my opponent agrees, we can do it. Okay. Because I am a world title holder.
Right.
So after this fight with Marie-Eve DeCare, I will be fighting 3 10-minute rounds.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, 10 3-minute rounds. And I'm just going to do that to show them that, one, it's 3 minutes and it's 10 rounds, but hopefully we can get 3 minutes and 10 rounds, edged in stone. Then maybe the girls who are coming up behind me, they can say, hey, just add 2 more rounds. It's only 6 minutes, right? And it won't be such of a big fight. Instead of having, have to have them keep on fighting for it, just 3 minutes period. Now they can say, well, we already fight 3 minutes for 10 rounds. You might as well just let us, we've been doing this for 5 years. You might as well let us fight the exact same time as the men, as we've had time to condition our bodies, right? And to get ready for a 12-round fight for 3 minutes. And that's the only way that I see it changing. But we got to start now. So after this fight with Marie-Eve DeCare, I will be fighting 3 I would be fighting 3 minutes, 10 rounds against whoever my opponent is.
That's great. That's a proactive way to create change by using you're obviously the best, one of the faces, the main face of women's boxing. So for you to do it and show it as an example is a great way to kind of start the change happening.
And I believe that the other women champions will follow. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, Jessica McCaskill, Cecilia.
Sure.
If they really believe in the change, right? If they really believe okay, we don't get paid like the men because we don't fight as much time as the men, well, let's fix that. So they should all be behind it, and then we should all be doing it together, because the more of us that do it, especially the world champions, and putting it on that world-class platform, I think it'll be able to change all the organizations' rules, and we'll be able to actually progress our sport.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's a way to demonstrate it can be done, and that could cascade with results, shortly after that. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me. Your event on March 5th should be a terrific one. Eva Dakar and you in the main event, and an all-women's card underneath, a pay-per-view, which, by the way, has been priced, I think, appropriately, and will help you, probably will help with the success of the event. And I know you have to be very excited overall about the event.
Absolutely. And I just want to say something. www.fitetv.com is where you go to buy the pay-per-view. But on the undercard, we have a real woman super heavyweight. Freaking heavyweight fight. This girl named Danielle Perkins. She's a real stacked heavyweight. Usually in women's boxing, you get the short, stubby heavyweights, kind of, round, kind of butter beanish looking. Oh, she's kind of built like Evander Holyfield. No disrespect to her. She's built very, very strong. Right. She got some broad shoulders. She punches hard. She's aggressive. She's tall. She's like 6'2". I think that she's going to bring a lot of noise, because women's boxing has never been respected in the heavyweight division, and she's a real heavyweight. So I'm excited to see her throw down in person.
Oh yeah, well, and the higher weight classes, higher even being where your weight classes are higher than previously in women. That's where women's boxing didn't used to have the depth that it's starting to have now. And there are more women in the higher weight classes now that are effective and good boxers, and that's helping the sport.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. Hey, thank you so much, Claressa. Appreciate you visiting with me, and good luck.
No problem. Thank you. See you March 5th.
So that was my chat with Claressa Shields, and I found interesting the part in which she talked about the fact that she thinks her image comes off harsher to some people than it really is. And a lot of that has to do with, I think, her presence on Twitter, where she will chop it up with folks and get down with them when somebody challenges her or there's somebody that makes a public statement she doesn't like. What you saw in that interview is, I think, maybe what she feels like she is and wants to portray. Very thoughtful, interesting, insightful woman who has, as I said in the interview, gotten way past some of the earlier issues she had when she was a youngster in terms of communicating. She is a terrific communicator and is very good at presenting all her thoughts and has thoughts on a wide range of issues in the world of boxing and the world of business. So I hope you enjoyed that chat. I certainly enjoyed talking to her. And Tripp, if I'm not mistaken, we still have questions to do.
We do. And Wreck-It Walk asks, Al, what do you see happening in the heavyweight division the next 3 to 5 years? The results of AJ Fury should have some ramifications that last a decade, at least in his opinion.
Yeah, they could well. The heavyweight division is fascinating. Of course, we know that Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury will be tied up with each other for the better part of this year, probably the whole year, because the deal that's likely to come down for them is going to involve 2 fights. And so that would certainly take them to the end of the year. And Joshua's 31 and Fury's 32. But more importantly, while that's still a young age for a heavyweight, they tend to blossom in their 30s. They've both talked about getting out of the sport in the near future. And the other point is, both of them will have made, by the time they're done facing each other, between other fights they've had that were major paydays and that, both of these men will have made many millions of dollars from boxing. And that's an allure to getting out of the sport when you've made that much money. Now, the other part of the major players in that in the heavyweight equation is Deontay Wilder, who is 35 years of age. And because of the nature not only of his loss to Tyson Fury, but some of the aftermath, which has been, a bit difficult for him in terms of messaging and all the rest, people are wondering where he's at. He's going to have to find a path for himself. And at age 35, though that's not considered that old for heavyweights because they tend to be around. One of the heavyweight contenders, Luis Ortiz, is 41 and still fighting at a fairly high level. So how does that move this division forward? Another point to be made is that every single heavyweight contender, with the exception of Joseph Parker, is over 30 years of age. Andy Ruiz, who's trying to come back with a new trainer and is a potential opponent for Wilder, is 31. Joe Joyce, who's relatively new to the heavyweight division and just won a big fight over Daniel Dubois, is new to the heavyweight division, but he's 35 years of age because he had an amateur career that lasted for a while and got into boxing late. Alexander Usyk, the former cruiserweight champ, just got into the heavyweight division, but he's 34. So it would take a crystal ball to figure out 4 years from now what this division is going to look like, because by then many of these people will be either way at the end of their career or even out of boxing. So the next few years, we know the three-headed monster of Joshua, Fury, and Wilder will likely reign, and then some of these other folks hope that they can get their chance in the division.
Right, and we know that Mark Breland will not be involved with Wilder coming, or at least in the very near future.
We do know that. No, I doubt that they will ever connect again, and they have had a very contentious relationship in the media. Finally, Mark Breland kind of speaking out a little bit.
Let's go to Jesus Rodriguez, has a great question. Al, this is a must-answer question.
Big well, fight then we must answer it.
Yeah, well, I get that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Berchelt, Valdez. Everyone is talking about a lot of great lightweights. Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis, Haney, Lopez, Loma. Why is no one talking about Berchelt? Do any of them really want to fight him? I think he cleans up in the division. What do you think, Al?
Well, Miguel Berchelt, who has a big fight coming up in days with Oscar Valdez, a terrific fight, is at 130 pounds. So he's not up at the lightweight division yet, though Gervonta Davis could certainly fight him at 130. Davis still holds a 130-pound title. If Berchelt moves up to that 135-pound limit, which he certainly could, there is no question that he would be an immediate player because he is one of the most exciting fighters in boxing. And I think he's right. Miguel Berchelt probably doesn't get enough attention. He's exciting. He's been involved in great fights. He's got power. He's got skill. And every time he steps in the ring, it is interesting for boxing fans. And certainly his fight with Oscar Valdez appears to be that. Now, if he gets past Oscar Valdez, where does Berchelt go? Where does he look now? Within his division, or does he step up to 135 pounds? Only he knows whether he feels he can perform as well at that higher weight division, but clearly that's not much higher. And he would add to that what is already an amazing lightweight landscape. So that would be pretty extraordinary. And I 100% agree that Miguel Berchelt should be getting much more attention than he is. And I think if he beats Oscar Valdez and does so very convincingly, that the boxing world is going to take notice of that and And then it's up to him whether he wants to stay at 130 or move up to 135. We on this show always point you to a very fine YouTube channel, the World Class Boxing channel that our friend Tom Yankello puts out. It's got great videos, instructional videos for young fighters that want to learn about the sport, and for anyone that wants to learn about the sport and understand some of the nuances of what people do in the ring. They're fascinating videos, and you'll get a kick out of those for sure. We are going to have as our next two guests, one will be Jerry Eisenberg, who is one of the best and greatest newspaper writers that has ever lived. Jerry is now 90 years of age, and at 90, Tripp, wrote his first novel.
Good to get an early start.
Yes. He's been a sports writer and written, a dozen sports books, and we're going to be talking to you about one of them, which is There Once Were Giants, which is a book about the heavyweight division and how it was back in the day and whether it could ever return. But yeah, at age 90, he decided, I think I should write my first novel. So that's pretty amazing. Jerry is a opinionated, fascinating man, and we're going to talk to him about the heavyweight landscape of the past and his book. And it's coming right around the anniversary of the Muhammad Ali-Joe Frazier fight, which was held on March 8th many years ago. So we're going to have fun talking to him. And then we're going to talk to our friend Snoop Dogg, who is going to visit us and talk about some very important, he's going to give us some important news about some boxing things that he's involved in. And of course, we're going to take that opportunity to just chat with him in general about his love of boxing, how he views the sport, his entrance into the sport, and we'll chat about his music as well and his career, and the fact that no one with the possible exception of Madonna, has reinvented themselves more times than Snoop Dogg and done so effectively.
And yeah, he's just one of the characters in a sport filled with characters.
Yeah, he brings something else to boxing, and it's fascinating. So we're going to chat with Snoop Dogg after that. We're also going to have David Benavides on the show talking about his fight upcoming. So we've got a lot of fun guests upcoming, and we hope that you will join us. I want to thank Claressa Shields for joining us on this show. My thanks to Tripp, as always, for doing a fine job as my co-host. And my thanks to you for watching. Much appreciated. Take care.